Good afternoon. Thanks for joining Family Caregiver Alliance for California Paid Family Leave. I am Calvin Hu, Education Coordinator at FCA and your host for today. Also on the line is my colleague, Tatiana Marskal, who is FCA's Program and Policy Specialist. For 4 decades, FCA has been working across the Bay Area and the nation to improve the well-being of family caregivers. We offer support through consultations, classes, workshops, retreats, research, and advocacy. To learn more about FCA or access our online resource center, CareNav, please visit us at caregiver.org. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box on your screen or your mobile device. We'll answer as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. We're also going to be asking you to give a little bit of feedback at the end of the webinar, so I'd like to thank you all in advance for filling that out. And finally, the webinars are all archived. We record them, and we do also archive the slides, so you can always refer back to them later on for your reference. So today, I'd like to welcome our guests, Jenya Cassidy and Charlotte Flanders. Jenya is the director of the California Work and Family Coalition. She has worked to expand the rights of working caregivers and parents for much of her career. She came to the coalition through her work with unions and disability rights organizations. Since joining the California Work and Family Coalition, Jenya has worked with members on successful campaigns to expand access to paid leave, paid sick days, and other laws that help workers balance work and family life. In addition to her work with the coalition, Jenya volunteers on local regional housing rights initiatives. Our second presenter for today is Charlotte Flanders. She recently joined the California Work and Family Coalition and will be leading paid leave education and training projects. She has diverse experiences in educating vulnerable communities on public health issues. Her goal is to develop grassroots education programs to increase the awareness of paid leave and the utilization of work-family rights. She completed her master's in public health with a concentration in community health education from the Colorado School of Public Health this past May. Now that you know a little bit more about today's presenters, I'd like to turn things over to Jenya and Charlotte.
Thanks so much, Calvin, and thank you, Calvin, Tatiana, and the Family Caregiver Alliance for having us today. Jenya, do you want to give us a little background about the coalition?
Yes, I also echo the thanks for having us. It's a great organization, and we're really, really proud to be collaborating with you and with so many other organizations across the state on making sure that caregivers and parents and working Californians know their rights when they need to take time off to care for each other and themselves. And just for some background, the California Work and Family Coalition, we're a longstanding coalition. We're an alliance of organizations that come together in the belief that all people should have the time and resources to care for themselves and to care for each other. And one of the things that we do as a coalition, and one of the reasons we're a longstanding coalition, is that while we fight for policy change to make sure that people have the right to care for each other, we work on things like paid leave, paid sick days, caregiver rights. A lot of our work is what Charlotte focuses on, and what this is about really is education around how do we really use these rights.
Yes, so that's what our goal is today. So some of our training goals today on this presentation is to learn the basics of paid family leave and related laws, understanding legal protections for caregivers, pregnant workers, and new parents, and then applying our new knowledge to the resources that we have available, such as our paid leave checklist. Our agenda for the presentation today is starting with paid family leave, go into job protection laws, paid sick and safe day laws, utilize that information through our paid leave checklist and real life scenarios, understand the positive effects and barriers of these laws, ways to get involved with our coalition, and then a Q&A session. So let's get started. Paid family leave is a wage replacement program that provides partial wage replacement for California workers who need to take time off to bond with a new child or care for a seriously ill family member. You can apply for paid family leave on the Employment Development Department, EDD, website, and it is linked here in our presentation. Eligibility requirements for paid family leave, and the most common and the most important thing to note of the eligibility is that you need to pay into SDI, so State Disability Fund. And how you know that is through this graphic here. Here's an example. You look at your pay stub, and if you see here in the red box, if you see CA, California State Disability Fund, so CA SDI, that means you're eligible. You pay into this fund, and it is your right to take leave to bond with a new child or foster child or care for a seriously ill family member. Another requirement is that you need to earn at least 300, of which SDI deductions were withheld during a base period. One thing we do emphasize is that citizenship and immigration status do not affect eligibility for paid family leave benefits. There is not a question on the application for this. And if you pay into SDI, this is your right, and you should take paid family leave when you need to. So, what is SDI, State Disability Insurance? This is a state fund that the majority of California workers pay into and draw upon when they can't take work due to temporary disability, including pregnancy related conditions or for paid family leave. This funds your wage replacement during your leave. Eligibility to use SDIs that you're unable to work or your customary work, you're in the labor market, you're suffering from wage loss, and as we mentioned before, earned at least 300 from which SDI deductions were withheld during a base period. So paid family leave, the two reasons that people take it are caregiving and bonding. So when a person would take it for caregiving, it provides partial wage replacement to take time off to care for a seriously ill family member. And defined in the law as a family member is children, spouses, domestic partners, parents, grandparents, grandchildren, parent-in-laws, and siblings. During your time of leave, you will get 60 to 70% of your normal weekly wages. This is up to $1,300 a week as of 2020. And you can take up to 8 weeks of paid family leave as of July 1st, 2020. It originally was 6 weeks. This law was expanded to 8 weeks. This can be taken all at once in parts. So you can take all at once 8 weeks once you apply. Or for example, some people take 4 weeks now or 2 weeks in a period and take the other weeks later on in the year. And you can apply through the EDD website within the 49 days that you know the family member that you need to care for is needed. The application for caregiving is a requirement. You have to show some form of medical certification, personal health information, or statement of care from a physician, a medical provider. And this really just verifies the person you're caring for really has a serious illness and they need your care. You can care for a family member in another state or country. Care does not have to occur only in California. For example, I have grandparents in the Philippines. If for some reason my grandma would fall ill or need a serious surgery, I would ask the doctor to provide me that note, and during the application provide that. This also goes when my mother is in Iowa, if I would need to travel there. Another reason for taking paid family leave is for bonding. So it's very similar to caregiving, but for bonding, it's for new parents who want to take time off work to bond or care for a newborn, adopted, or foster child within the first year of birth or placement in the home. Again, it is 60-70% of your weekly wages, up to $1,300 a week, and up to 8 weeks as of July 1st. This can be taken all at once or in parts. Application is through the EDD, and within 49 days of knowing that your estimated due date or when the child will be placed in your home. The application will also require proof of relationship from birth parents, non-birth parents, foster, and adoptive. If the birth parent used pregnancy disability leave, they do not have to provide a proof of relationship. But if the parent did not take pregnancy disability leave, they do have to provide proof of relationship, such as a birth certificate. And paid family leave is a wage replacement program only. It does not require your employer to give you back your job when you return from leave, which is why we have job protection laws. And Jenya will get into that now.
Yeah. So there's some great questions that came up that this will partly cover, and then I did take note of them to cover some of them in the Q&A section at the end. So I really appreciate the super great questions I'm seeing that are really, not untypical, because it's much more complicated than it should be. And one of the complicated things about it is, as Charlotte just said, paid leave is really just a wage replacement. So the way that you have the right to that is we all pay into it, and then when it's our time to need it, we can use it when we need it, right? But the job protection piece is very important for, if you're working, you want to have a job to return to when you take your leave, of course. So those are different laws, but you are taking your paid leave at the same time that you're taking a job protected leave. So let me go over that, and then I'm seeing these great questions and they're exciting to me. So your employer has to guarantee your job. This is job protection. When you return from leave, it means maintaining your benefits if you have them during leave. No retaliation. So if I were your boss, for example, I can't say, okay, great, you had a baby, or you're caring for your father. Now you come back. Now you're on the night shift or something. If you were on the day shift before, I'm not supposed to change your job in any way because you took the leave. So your employer is really required to protect your job if you're covered by separate state and federal leave, which we'll cover in a second. So next slide. The job protection laws, just to go over them quickly, and we'll talk about them more, is the somebody here mentioned the FMLA. The Family Medical Leave Act is a federal law that protects your job when you're on leave. California Family Rights Act is a California law that protects it at the same time. New Parent Leave Act is a new law that we'll talk more about in a minute, just briefly. And then pregnancy disability leave. These are all laws that just protect you, but don't give you any pay. But while you're getting your paid leave, you need that extra protection to be sure that you can return to your job. So the Family Medical Leave Act, which I think many of you are familiar with, it's the longest standing one. President Clinton still says it's the thing he gets the most thanks for during his presidency. It was historic. 1993, he signed this law, and believe it or not, it was the first time that we had a federal law that protected you for your own serious health condition, caregiving, or having a new child. So you're taking time off to bond with a newborn, recently adopted, or foster child, to care for a seriously ill family member, to care for your own serious health condition, or it also covers military deployment and things related to having to take care of things when you have somebody who's deployed. So the California Family Rights Act is very similar to the FMLA, except it recently expanded as of January 1st, 2021. It will cover employers of 5 or more, and it will also cover us caregiving for not only children, spouses, domestic partners, and parents, but also grandparents, grandchildren, parent-in-law, and siblings. And for the caregiving focus, that's really important because we can now care for a lot more family members. So the New Parent Leave Act will be, we have an even stronger law starting in January, but for the last couple of years, it's been for people who work in a business of 20 or more to care, to bond with a new child. Next slide. So this is really key to know the eligibility requirements for 2020 FMLA, CFRA, and the other job protection New Parent Leave Act. 1 year on the job, you would work about 25 hours or more a week. And then being in an employer of 50 or more employers, especially for one owns serious health condition or caregiving. And then for the new parents, it was 20 or more in California. Next slide. So, but great news for us, Family Caregiver Alliance, and all of the different people across the state who need to care for a loved one. January 1st, 2021, the New Parent Leave Act will no longer be in effect, which sounds like bad news, but it isn't, because it means the California Family Rights Act will be expanded, SB 1383, to many more employees and workers than the other law covered. So as of January 1, 2021, all employees who work for an employer with 5 or more will, and meet other requirements of CFRA, 1 year on the job, 25 hours or more per week, will qualify for job protection. That just means that when you go out on leave, your job is there when you're done, which is key for a lot of people being able to take this leave. Go ahead. So hopefully I'm not talking too fast. Signal to me, Charlotte, if I am. If anybody says I am. Eligibility requirements for FMLA and CFRA as of 2021. 1 year on the job still working the 25 hours a week or more, but the 5 employees or more for your own serious health condition, new parents, or to care for all of these different family members is new. It just means millions more people actually now qualify for job protection when they take that important leave. So what are your rights under FMLA, CFRA, and the New Parent Leave Act? Your leave length, oh, thanks, John. Thanks, person who said that. Your rights under FMLA, CFRA, and the New Parent Leave Act are that 12 weeks, I'll talk about the taxable income in a second. So 12 weeks per year, all at once or intermittently, you should be restored to the same or equivalent job. So I'm not saying before you were taking tickets and now you're scrubbing the floor. I mean, I shouldn't be changing your job because you went on leave. You would have a continuation of health benefits if you have employer health benefits. And then it's very important to be no retaliation or discrimination for taking that leave. So that's the protection that you have. So one thing that I know we're talking more about the caregiving leave, but one important job protection leave that is important because it also does kind of connect to caregiving is pregnancy disability. So for pregnant workers, it is 5 or more employees with no tenure, meaning you could literally have just started the job, but there's a lot stronger protections for pregnant workers. Yes, somebody asked if the job protection, all of the job protection laws do maintain your insurance if you have insurance through your employer, because that would be considered a negative, right, of taking the leave if you lost your insurance. So if you do have employer paid insurance, it maintains throughout that time that you're taking it. Yes, your employer should still pay for it. There are some differences with that get a little bit complicated, and I can cover that a little bit more in the Q&A period, because there are sometimes a premium or something some employers will pay. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit of that if it doesn't come right out of your paycheck. So up to 4 months. So pregnancy disability leave is up to 4 months if you need it of job protected leave while disabled by pregnancy. And it continues your health benefits, can be used intermittently, but it also helps a pregnant worker have accommodations on the job, which is really important. And it gives the pregnant worker 6 to 8 weeks after having birth to recover from their own serious health condition so that they still have time to bond after that. Next slide. Oh, you can, yeah. So as we mentioned, the SB 1383 extends job protection to a lot more new people. It was just signed by the governor. It was a huge thing because we've been working on this for years, and it will just help a lot more people, especially for caregivers who care for the family members I went over before, the spouses, domestic partners, parents-in-law, grandparents, grandchildren, and siblings. It also really helps with a lot more diverse families, and just helps a lot more people take the leave. This will be effective starting January 1st, 2021. And if you don't qualify for job protection, you can still use paid leave. You can ask your employer if you can take leave from your job, but your employer is not, let's say you worked for an employer that only had 4 employees, you wouldn't be legally obligated to accommodate the request for leave. Many employers will. A couple things I want to mention that relate to the job protection that came up in the questions are, let's say right now you're not working because maybe you quit your job at the beginning of COVID, or who knows. If you're not working now, but you recently worked, in terms of paid family leave, if you had recently been paying into paid family leave, you would be able to use that even if you were unemployed, because let's say you have to care for a family member. Right now, you're not working. You're going to be on that leave. You're not even looking for a job. So you are eligible to take it even if recently you didn't have a job, as long as you have in the last couple of years paid into it. For the job protection piece specifically, if you have vacation time on the books For FMLA and CFRA, you do have to use some of that vacation time, but this can be considered different than paid sick time because it really kind of depends on how the employer deals with that. But in general, it's for more serious health conditions that you're caring for somebody, or for your own serious health condition. But if the employer doesn't have to, but they can have you use 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks of vacation time if you have that time before going into your FMLA time. So I hope that is helpful for that question. Somebody else asked what a base period is, and I don't know if we should, going into that is it's not too complicated. It's basically a 3-month period that they're looking at your wages, and they go back a base period to decide what the highest amount that you made during that time is the amount that your paid leave would be. So if your money fluctuates, that's more, it impacts you a little bit more. So I hope that's helpful. And maybe we should answer more questions. You can go to the next slide. To ensure your rights when you take this leave, you would want to talk to your doctor or medical provider. For example, I did go on disability leave when I was pregnant with twins because I had an early complication with the pregnancy. So that impacted both my husband taking some leave to care for me and me taking time off. Talking to my doctor helped me get the certification I needed to apply for both disability, but also to have that FMLA leave. Telling your employer, you need to just let them know as soon as you can that you need to take this leave. And then the Employment Development Department is where you're applying for your paid family leave. And then it's just important from our legal partners to document everything in case. So you might not have a problem later, but just in case, so that you're sure that you're communicating with everybody. So one of the great tools we have is from our partners as a sample letter to request leave. It can just help. A lot of people are nervous about asking for that leave, and you don't have to write this letter. It's not a legal requirement, but it has all the terms that will be useful. You might want to use it or adapt it a little bit to let your employer know, especially if you're with a larger employer and it's a little bit more formal.
Yeah, thank you, Jenya. And the resources that we have here today will be at the end of this presentation. We'll have all hyperlinks to it with the sample letters and everything we talked about today. So another set of laws for leave, this is more short-term leave, is paid sick and safe days. So what are paid sick and safe days? All Californians working 30 or more days within a year must be given a minimum of 3 paid sick days. This is the law. Now, this is different for local laws. For example, San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, San Jose, and LA have expanded this locally, and employers are able to give their employees more than 3 paid sick and safe days. So, and this is in our resources as well. You can look as to where you live and what your local ordinances are. Paid sick and safe days can be used for your own illness or care for a family member. This includes diagnosis care, treatment of an existing condition, or preventative care like annual checkups or vaccinations. They can also be used to seek care or services related to domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking, which is why it's also called safe days. This is 100% of your regular pay. This does carry job protection. The eligibility requirements is that you must be employed for at least 90 days, work in California for 30 days, and accrue the right amount of time of leave. Employers cannot deny any requests for paid sick days. An employer does not have to know why you're using paid sick days, but you should notify your employer as soon as you can to let them know you're using your days. But of course, anticipated illness or emergencies come up, so it's okay to notify your employer a bit later, but as soon as possible. And like Jenya showed with those sample letters, there are also sample letters for paid sick and safe days where they just have boxes where you can check preventative care, seeking vaccination. So you don't have to say specific reasons, but just the general reasons. And in addition to that, your employer cannot require you to find a coworker to cover your absence as a condition of using paid sick and safe days. Your employer cannot require documentation such as a doctor's note as a condition to use these sick and safe days, unless you're taking more than three or more consecutive days in a row. And you can decide how much paid sick and safe days you use at a time. For example, you can use half a day, but your employer can require you to at least 2 hours at a time. So I know that was a lot of information, but one thing we really like to do is do practice scenarios and apply the information that now we know into some real life situations and to kind of help you simulate how you would share this information. So Jenya, do you want to do the first scenario?
Yes. So this is Claire, and to go over her scenario, her spouse, I forgot what we named him, but you'll remind me in a minute. He was just diagnosed with, David. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he's going to need chemotherapy treatments every week for 6 weeks, which is, a lot of families are going through this now. And Claire needs to take time off to work she needs to take time off to care for him for 6 weeks while he gets this chemotherapy. She's worked for her employer for 14 months, so over a year, works 40 hours a week, and works for a large employer with 100 employees. She looked at her pay stub, and she does pay into California SDI. The question is, does Claire qualify for paid family leave for caregiving? And the second question is, will she qualify for job protection?
There should be 2 polls popping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first poll, does she qualify for paid family leave for caregiving? And then if people can answer the poll. And then the second question on the poll is, will she qualify for job protection when she takes this leave?
And just do your best guess. We know this is a lot of information at once, but it's just best to try and continue learning.
Yes, and then do we, let me see, are we going to go?
Nope.
Let's give people a minute to answer the poll. And then I don't know if I will get, if I can see. Okay, very good. Oh, wow. Very, this is great. So a few people know, maybe 1 or 2 people know, or 1 person know, and a few I don't know. So I think the slightly more complicated is the job protection, but it seems like a lot of people got it right. So yes, Claire, go back again.
Sorry.
So just to go over, Claire does qualify for paid leave because she pays into SDI. She can now take up to 8 weeks of paid family leave for caregiving to care for her spouse, David, and to receive 60 or 70% of her pay. And then for the job protection question, which is usually a little more complicated and people have more questions about, but people said yes. And it's true, she does qualify for up to 12 weeks of job protection. So that's one of the things I didn't really hit hard on, but you actually get more job protection right now than you get pay from paid family leave. So if you could afford, which not everybody can, to be on leave longer and you needed to, you could, within a year, you get 12 weeks. So she works for an employer with 50 or more, and she's been there for a year, so for over a year. So she has worked the amount of hours and does qualify. Go ahead, Charlotte, to the next.
And this is just reminding everyone of like qualifying reasons. So she would take it because she's caring for her domestic partner. And the eligibility requirements, like you guys did, you did a great job. So this is as of 2020 again.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jenya, if you wanted to talk about this a bit more, how job protection and FMLA work together.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying in the very beginning. One of the more complicated things about our laws is that they don't all match up completely. So if you look at the green, that's green for money, and it's 8 weeks of wage replacement. So you get your wage replacement, which is 60 or 70%. For most of us, it's 60% of our pay for up to 8 weeks. But then the time that we have where our job is protected, which is the black line, FMLA or CFRA, is a little bit longer. So if I could afford to, or if I absolutely needed to, and I was caring for my mom, and over a year, I took 8 weeks already, I would still have more weeks left to be able to care for her with at least the job protection piece.
Yes.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Good job. That was a good one. And so we're going to go into another scenario, and this is one of our resources. So when you're working with your community members or your clients or whoever you're trying to educate and see if they qualify for paid family leave and for job protection, this is one of our resources, which is the paid leave checklist. It is 5 questions based on the eligibility requirements. One thing I think we should also add this question on here, and maybe we will in the future, is one thing you should always ask first is, do they pay into California state disability? That, like we said, that is the requirement for bonding. But as you see here, the 5 questions is the first, why are you using this time off? It asks if you're doing it for bonding, caregiving, taking care of your own illness, or seeking psychological counseling or domestic violence care. So it also has paid sick and safe days in here. It asks, what city do you work in? How long have you worked there? How many hours have you worked at this place for 12 months? And how many employees does this company have, or your company have, in the 75-mile radius? So let's utilize this checklist. Here's another scenario. This is Mateo. Mateo's father is sick with a stomach bug, and Mateo needs to take time off while he recovers, and he needs to take care of him while he recovers. So let's use the paid leave checklist to determine what Mateo's rights are to stay at home from work to care for his father. So the first question we would ask Mateo is, why are you using this time off? And he's using it to care for your own or family members' health for 3 to fewer days. What city do you work in? He works in Los Angeles. He has worked there for about 3 years. He works full time, so approximately about 40 hours a week, and he has about 3 coworkers. So another poll question is about to pop up, and the question is, based on Mateo's situation and the responses of the paid leave checklist, do you think it makes most sense for Mateo to use paid sick and safe days, or paid family leave, or if you don't know, I don't know. All right, let's see the results. So the majority of you said paid sick and safe days. A few of you said paid family leave, and some said, I don't know. This is great. So for the next slide, the answer would be, based on Mateo's situation, it makes most sense for him to use paid sick and safe days. So great job. His father has a stomach bug, which is likely to be a short-term illness, and you can always talk to a physician or his doctor to really estimate how long he would need time off. Note that Mateo does work in Los Angeles, so he would qualify for additional paid sick days under the Los Angeles ordinances. So please look at resources for more information. So like I said, the resources slide, you can look at where you live and how many sick days, local ordinances you'll be allowed to take. And then now for our final scenario, we're going to use a paid leave checklist case study.
Great. So this is Mark and his mother, Grace, we decided, and she has to go undergo major surgery. Mark needs to take time off for his mother, and this is pretty typical, right, to take her to doctor's appointments and just help support her as she figures out her medical care plan. And he would need about a month off to travel to Chicago, where she lives, to care for her. So right now, Mark works in San Diego, and he's been at his job for 5 years. He works full time, and he has about 30 coworkers. So the first question to put in the chat is, what is the first step to know if Mark is eligible for paid family leave? And if people could put their answers in the chat. Okay, so let me see if a few more people answer. Yeah. So it seems like, great. This is great that people are saying paying into SDI. And the reason it's so great that so many of you are answering that is, as simple as it seems, it really is the #1 thing to understand about paid leave. It's all based on SDI. If you pay in, you have that as your bank account for when you need it for your own serious health condition, for SDI, or for paid leave to care for somebody else. So you would ask Mark if he's been paying into. If he doesn't know, you would ask him to check his pay stub, and there's usually it's CA SDI, or here it's spelled out a little bit more than on my paycheck. California State Disability Insurance. Great. So he looked at his paycheck, and yes. So now we're using the paid leave checklist, which is a really handy thing to see if Mark is eligible for job protection, because he doesn't want to lose his job when he goes to Chicago. So one of the questions you would ask, let's say you were helping Mark figure this out, what are you using the time off for? Is it to bond with a child? No. An adopted child? No. Foster child? No. To care for a seriously ill family member? Yes. So what city do you work in? Now, just for your information, and this is something that we can follow up with resources on, there are a few cities have a few different things about paid leave. For the most part, it's the same. Oh, good question. So when you don't pay into SDI, either you might have it in a different way through whatever disability you pay into, or the only other way would be if you recently paid into SDI, which is too bad and is also something that we want to work on. So how long have you worked there? 5 years. How many hours did you work at this workplace in the past 12 months? So he's full-time, 40 hours. And then the big question, how many employees does your company have in a 70-mile radius? If they have a lot of different little offices, as long as they're somewhat close, then you would be that you're counting those employees. So it's 30 coworkers. Okay, so the paid leave checklist. So the case study answer is that he does, as we identified, he does qualify for paid leave, and he could take up to 8 weeks of paid leave to care for his mother. And it would probably be 60% of his pay. Unfortunately, the 70% is for making pretty low income that not even a lot of people qualify for right now who have taken it. So until December 31st, 2020, he doesn't meet the eligibility requirements for job protection because he has only 30 coworkers. But if his mother has an ongoing situation, the good news in terms of his options for care, at least, are that he would meet the qualifications for job protection under the new law because he's planning to use the leave to care for a seriously ill family member, and he's been there for long enough. Then now it would go down to 5 employees and he would be able to take it. So let's talk about what are his options then to take the leave? Are we asking that in the chat? I can't.
Oh, no, I was just gonna mention that. So for like we're talking about here, so like he qualifies because why he's taking the reason for leave is because he's taking care of a seriously ill parent. As of 2020, like Jenya mentioned, he doesn't qualify because as you see on number 3, it's supposed to be 50 plus employees for one's own illness or caregiving. So let's say his mother had to take emergency surgery right now. What Mark could do is he could maybe you could ask if he has a sibling, a cousin, or a trusted family member that could take care of his mom now. And then as of January 1st, 2020, and then help his mom recover from surgery. So that is one option. Another option is that he could just take paid family leave right away as of December, but he wouldn't have job protection and maybe work it out with his employer.
Yeah.
One thing we emphasize is that each scenario is so different, and it's so important to ask a lot of these questions to help the individual you're working with understand different options and letting them know when laws expand and how to best help them, financially and their options. So that's just kind of showing you there's different options of working this out and, working with the close family members to see just in case if he doesn't qualify currently. And this is how it works, right? He can take up to 8 weeks right away and he'll have 12 weeks of job protection. But if he doesn't take it until January 1st and he takes it now, he wouldn't have the job protection part. Right, Jenya?
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Thanks, Charlotte, because I think those are some really good options for him. And then yes, he could potentially use sick leave, and sick leave is job protected. We don't always talk about it that way because I think people just kind of assume that, but yeah, you are supposed to be fired for taking a paid sick day. They wouldn't create them and then make you get fired for them, hopefully. But and our sick leave is also for caregiving, so that might be the most immediate thing. Also, like what Charlotte was saying, one of the ways we talk about this as a whole family issue is that, for example, when my mother-in-law had a heart attack, 8 children, and only a few of them lived in California, because originally from Chicago. But of the 8 children, 2 lived in California and could take paid family leave. So within the family, people are kind of figuring out who has access to what in order to take turns caring for the mother. So I think that's something like he could do too if he has siblings or if he has another family member, and then take more time in the new year. Or, yes, if it's just a few days, he could take paid sick time.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and there's many impacts of these laws, and there's many studies that have been done here in California, nationally and internationally. And the positive impacts of equitable work-family laws is that, especially for paid family leave, it has found that it has improved health outcomes for new parents and children. It allows caregivers, people for caring for a family member, to remain in the workforce, especially women. Paid family leave and paid sick days promote the economic independence that is a preventative factor against interpersonal violence, and paid family leave helps close the pay gap between men and women. Like we said, especially women who are new parents or caregivers are able to stay in the workforce and really reach their potential for pay. But there are still many barriers to using paid family leave. There is still a lot of lack of awareness, especially among immigrants, refugees, bilingual speakers, especially Spanish speakers. There's a lot of low take up among these communities. The application process is often a bit difficult to navigate, especially if you're multilingual. Wage replacement is not enough, especially for low income workers. There is a limited definition of family. There's a lack of job protection, difficult for independent contractors to access benefits, and most public employees are not included, which is why it's so important to, be part of advocacy work. And if you are very motivated, be part of our coalition advocacy and education work. If Jenya, you want to touch more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I got busy answering questions because I have a compulsion to do that. I don't know why, and it's kind of weird, and I don't have all the answers. We work with such a group of experts that a lot of what's really great about this program that Charlotte is launched this year, and we're going to be building up next year, of just helping, like, all these people in the picture have gone through this program in different ways and are learning how to be educators in their own community. And it's just such a vital thing right now that we share this information with each other. So, one of the great things about it is that I don't have all the answers, but I love answering questions about paid leave. And if I don't know something, there are experts in our coalition that can. For example, I would go to Family Caregiver Alliance for a lot of really specific questions on how to use the Caregiver Resource Center for support, things like that. People need usually a lot more than just how much time do I have off. It always leads to other questions. We have legal people. You don't always have a legal problem just because you're taking leave, but sometimes you do, and they're the ones that can answer that. So, it's just getting involved. There's so many ways to get involved. I think the number one thing this year will be really spreading the information about leave. The other thing that came up with some of the questions is, how do we expand it next to make sure it works for everybody? A public employee on here, you have family members probably that pay into it, but if you're not paying into SDI, unless you get some kind of leave through your union contract or another way, you're not getting, this paid family leave. Some public employees have opted in, but they have to do as a whole bargaining unit group. And then there may be a law in the future where we can opt all public employees in, as long as you all want to be in. So those are just some of the examples of ways that we are working on expanding the leave laws.
Yeah, and if I may add, Jenya, and that's a great example of way to get involved, is that not everyone does qualify for these laws, right? We're not at the most equitable point of these laws yet, which is so important to have advocates. So you are constituents of some assembly member, and during the legislative session, it's so important to hear your voice. Even if you don't qualify, it's important to hear why you don't qualify and how it affects you and why it's important to expand these laws. So it's not only important just to be an educator to educate about what's currently going on, but also be an advocate and be part of the policy process. So we definitely would love to be a constituent and be part of this advocacy point for us as well. So that wraps up, and if this is a great point to have questions.
And one of the things I really welcome out loud questions if there are any. And then I have handwritten down a list of some of the ones that came up, and I can share them with Charlotte too. So I think I covered earlier the question, vacations on the books. Yes, for job protection, they can make you use some of that, but they're not necessarily making you use all your paid sick days and all your vacation. It's up to 2 weeks for FMLA. If people want to, they can sometimes combine vacation pay, but that's a thing you have to work out with your employer a little bit. If you were recently employed, but are not now, I think I covered that question. Somebody said that their public employer said 18 weeks. FMLA is only 12 weeks. That doesn't mean you only have 12 weeks. It could be that they might even be talking about military exigency leave, which is an FMLA law that extends it for very specific reasons, which we can, in our resources, we can follow up with more information on that. Or they could be referring to more time off that you have. But FMLA itself is 12 weeks for caregiving. So no social security number. It can be kind of concerning, and I know that's a little bit stressful, but if you are paying into SDI in some way, then there are different ways to prove that. And I think I put, and we have at the end, Legal Aid at Work, which is one of our legal partners, that if you are coming up against a problem where you think you've paid in, but you want to be sure you can get your benefit, you can call them, and they're very helpful. We usually call you back within 24 hours. What was the other big question that came up? Taxable, weirdly PFL is, but SDI is not, so that can be a little bit awkward. And I think we don't have a real handout on that, but maybe we should create one to kind of clarify that issue. Charlotte, are you seeing more questions that you want to?
I think Calvin or Tatiana, I didn't know if there was more in the Q&A box, if you wanted to ask those.
Sure,
We have, go ahead.
Sorry, you can go ahead, Tatiana.
Okay, we have a couple questions through Facebook that I would like to ask right now. We had a question, can an employer require FMLA time off to be written in hours instead of days in order to approve your time off?
You know what, that I think I would ask Legal Aid at Work, because I'm not sure the impact that has. And I don't know if this answers that question, but you can take it intermittently, meaning if I needed literally to drive a family member to chemotherapy and back, but I didn't want to take a full day off because I wanted to save my time, I could write it down in like I needed 4 hours today to drive them there, wait with them, care for them a little bit, bring them back, and then, be with them. Maybe I'm not taking a full day off, but I think if there's any downside to having to write it out in hours and your employer is asking that, there's no requirements from FMLA that says an employer has to monitor it this way or that way, really. So and if it's anything bad or negative that comes from that, I would call Legal Aid at Work, which I think we have a link to them. Their 1-800 number I can share in the chat. It's 800-880-8047. We call them all the time. Yeah, so I think, go ahead. Maybe Calvin and Tatiana, if you can help with questions, because I think there's a lot and we do have some time for a few of them, which is great.
Yeah, no problem. We have another question on paid family leave. Can we get it as a result of COVID-19?
Yeah, the COVID-19, there are a lot of things that expanded rights, both with paid leave, with paid sick days. There are a lot of emergency funds for people who had to take time off because their children are out of school. A lot of that expires in literally a few weeks, and we're hoping that there will be an extension. I do think with that, it would have been hard to add in all of that to this training, but what we can do is link you to resources on that, because it's definitely very relevant right now. We are in our advocacy work, really working with our partners, both at the federal and state level. We need some expansion because it's not going away, right?
Great, thank you. We have one other question, which is regarding caring for a parent. Does the wife of a parent, for example, a step parent, qualify as a parent that would be eligible for paid family leave?
Wait, can the wife of a parent?
Right, so it would be, it's regarding, I guess, caring for a parent, and they're asking if their wife would be able to step in to care for them.
Yes, that is such a great thing that parents-in-law are included. For a lot of people, it sounded, like a lot to include them, but we have worked with so many workers where really the parent in the person, the other person do that care. So it's been really great, yeah, that you care for a parent. So one question that came up earlier, and I would love to get, it says my internet connections is weird, so hopefully you can hear me. But one question that came up is, if you're self-employed, can you get this benefit? And yes, but it's complicated. There's a program called the DIEC, forget what that stands for, but it's in the EDD. And if you pay into it, you can voluntarily pay into it if you're self-employed. And that means that, like, especially if you're anticipating needing to be a caregiver or a parent who temporarily can't work or wants to bond or care, then it might make sense to pay into it. And there's we have a blog on our website about it that really clears it up, but there's also in the EDD website a whole explanation of how you apply for that program. Oh yes, the question about FMLA that just came up, by law, your employer can, remember, it doesn't have to, but can have you use your vacation first. And for some reason, I'm not sure why it would be better to use sick time, but for some reason, you don't necessarily get to decide. I mean, you could negotiate it with them and figure out if there's a way to do it a little bit differently, but they can require you to use vacation. And a lot of people don't like that. That could be something that could change in the future, but for now it is. Sometimes if you have a union contract, you can at least bargain that away for your group, but in the law, it still says you can get to use your vacation. Your employer can make you use your vacation. Any other, I saw a few more.
And I also was going to suggest, if we didn't answer any specific questions, please feel free to email us as well. Our contact information, well, I'll just move it. Let's see, this is our resources slide, and this is our contact information is here. So if we didn't answer any specific questions, please feel free to email us as well.
Oh, and one quick question, and somebody asked if they could be unmuted to ask a question, and I'm not sure if that will work, but just asking for them. Oh yes, Calvin, I think, who's been great helping us with this, is going to send the PowerPoint slides out after so people can have them for reference. And they also have links at the end that you just saw.
And I also just wanted to mention that I know we talked about, we had trainings in the past, and then in this upcoming spring, we're going to have more like paid family leave educator training sessions. So if you are interested in that, please go to our website and sign up for a newsletter, and we'll keep you up to date as to when our next training sessions are to become a paid family leave educator. And I know it's 12:57, so Tatiana, I didn't know if you wanted to do more questions or if you wanted, I know there's something at the end you wanted to do.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte and Jenya, for your presentation. If we did not get to your question, please make sure just to add it on chat. We'll do our best to try to get back to you through email. And my apologies for those that wanted to speak up. We just want to be respectful with everybody's time that we're joining. Charlotte, can you move to the next slide, please? We also want to thank, Family Caregiver Alliance. We are based in the Bay Area, and we provide different resources to family caregivers, specifically in San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Alameda, Contra Costa, and Marin. Next slide, please. We also would like to extend a warm thank you to California's Caregiver Resource Center. which we are a part of. So if you are joining from another part of California and would like to get more resources, please make sure to contact us at Caregiver, or you can go to our website at caregivercalifornia.org, and we could help you connect to your caregiver resource centers in your area. Next slide, please. Within the Caregiver Resource Center website, we'll also have access to CareNav, which is a simple, friendly user tool designed to help families navigate the complexity of caring for a loved one. So you would be able to access free webinars, videos, and additional resources. Next slide, please. Okay, that is it. So if I'm going to be posting a poll right now. It's an evaluation poll. Also, for those who are joining and would like to get more information on a family resource center in your area, please let us know via chat and we can connect you. Thank you very much.